Today, we're getting under the hood of domestic abuse with Kia Lee, a stage 3 breast cancer survivor, author, speaker, and survivorship mentor dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional and psychological realities of life after trauma, illness, and profound life transitions. When you think about your journey, what felt like the earliest signs that something wasn't right, even if you couldn't name it at the time?
Yeah, there was random signs, and they're not random, right? I believe that the person knows what they're doing. I believe that they target individuals and they're doing their thing. And the individuals typically don't know they're targeted. So for me, looking back, I could see possessive, ism, objectification, but all of it was kind of hidden and masked in humor. And, it's just like, oh, well, I'm just joking. And looking back, they weren't jokes. And yeah, it's just unfortunate if you don't have, the vocabulary, you don't know what you're looking for. It all just kind of seems, normal, but just little things and being secretive about things that normal people wouldn't be secretive about. And and then when you try and reciprocate that, it's like a double standard. So I learned very quickly not to question because I didn't want to create waves in the sand, so and that is eventually turns into walking on eggshells.
Can you share what helped you begin to trust your own voice again, especially when it may have been diminished or dismissed?
Got it. Sure. So learning to trust myself again really started with my breath, walking, journaling, and being reunited with my voice because for so long I had, stuffed everything down and muted that voice to give that person's voice more power than my own because I started to question everything that I was questioning. So I'm like, okay, well, let's not do that. So on the flip side, it was really digging into why do I think that? Why do I feel that? And journaling and going on long walks. And I'm the queen of like talking into my phone and doing the text to voice to note. And then really sitting there with all of it and realizing that no, I'm not crazy. No, I'm not making things up. This is what's happening. And finding vocabulary and language to describe what it is. And once I discovered love bombing and, what like narcissism in general, I was like, oh, these things aren't happening in a void or a vacuum. There's names for them and they exist and they happen to other people and other people experience them. So once that all started clicking and falling into place, it was much easier to hear my voice because it all was making sense. It wasn't just some random, thing happening.
What moments of strength or clarity helped you take a step, even the smallest one, towards safety or change?
Sure. So for me, most of the relationship was in a fog. I was in a fog, and I believe that that's by design, right? Like they need to keep you where they want to keep you, or they need to keep you to get what they want out of it, their supply, if we're going to use the language. So I always kind of felt something was off. And towards the end, I even was like, all right, I just want to get out of this because I'm not happy. So I was slowly trying to actively, casually say like, hey, if we're not happy, I think we might be better apart and like little suggestions. And it really wasn't landing, obviously, because that's not what that individual wanted. I'm thinking that they're normal like other people and are going to catch the hint and we're eventually going to, roll off and go our separate ways. So unfortunately for me, it didn't really happen until the violent incident, at the end. And that's what expedited my immediate, like, out of the relationship. And it's just, my hope is that other women don't have to get to that point. That's why I like to share and just all my cards out on the table.
Every survivor's path is different. What support or person, if any, helped you feel seen, heard, or less alone during that time?
My mom and my sisters, are my rocks, right? And they held and hold so much space for me. They help me process things. They don't make me feel judged, and they're loving. And the other thing that really helped me, is also having friends and talking with them and them holding space. But the main thing for me was my writing. I was able to go there, make sense of everything, pull everything apart and deconstruct everything, because for me, I needed to understand what happened. What did I miss? Where did I miss it? And how do I not let this happen again? And then as I began to understand that, whoa, this is a story that's beyond me, and I need to share it with the masses, it became more so about me owning my truth so that then no one else could own anything over me. So this individual could never go anywhere and say anything and hold me hostage based on me being afraid of what people might think if they knew X, Y, and Z. It's like me taking ownership, freed and liberated myself, from the process and everything.
How
Yeah.
did the domestic experience impact your sense of self, and what has helped you rebuild or reclaim parts of yourself?
The abuse damaged 100% physically, right? That I've never experienced violence in my entire life, right? And I have not since. So that was like psychological, emotional trauma, right? Like that's a lot of therapy sessions, a lot of EMDR sessions just from the physical act alone. And all of it as a whole definitely affected my confidence in myself and how do I trust other individuals, because when you let your guard down and you let someone in, let them into your home, your life, around your loved ones, and they act in, such a horrific manner, you realize like, wow, like this could be have been so much worse, even though it was probably the worst it could have ever been. So it just really rocks your world in a sense where you're just like, wow, I need to get grounded. I need to get my footing again. And for me, I really just wanted to heal because I didn't want to then become a damaged goods that then bled on everyone else because someone cut me. I wanted the trauma and everything to stop with me. I wanted to address what I could address, heal what I could heal. So then when I move forward in the world, it ends with me because I believe that our interactions are all ripples. That person has their own karma, their own trauma, their own wounds, and that's on them to solve or not solve in their lifetime. And they're not going to ruin, my time and like my purpose here.
So,
So,
what were the internal barriers, fear, guilt, doubt, hope, that made leaving or reaching out for help complicated or difficult?
mm, I think it's really rooted in my childhood traumas, right? The thought and the narrative that at some point in my childhood, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, who like we don't know, where I learned that I had to earn love, and where I learned that love was hard, and that the harder I worked at it, the more likely it was possible to happen. And that was in the relationship between myself and my father. So there's abandonment issues. So this type of relationship activated all of that. And, the harder I fought, the more farther it became. So it became this very familiar feeling. So red flags felt familiar. So therefore, they weren't red flags for me. That was like, oh, keep going, keep going. You're almost there. If you just do this enough, and if you just do that enough, then you'll finally arrive to where you think you're going to be and where you're going to feel wonderful and you're going to feel loved and all of those things that we hope, but will never actually come because that's not how it works. But if you're not aware of those wounds and those narratives, you'll be stuck in that loop indefinitely.
Many survivors talk about a turning point.
Mhm.
Was there a moment or realization that shifted something inside of you?
Yeah, it was the moment that I had realized that this person cheated. So it was infidelity. And it wasn't just like a feeling. I saw a message. I took the number, I texted that person, and I had a call with them. and they confirmed everything. So it was no longer speculation. It was no longer me justifying something. It was another voice on the phone telling me facts that lined up with other facts that I had. So it was just like cold facts in my face. And so at that point, it was no longer, oh, well, maybe he is or maybe he isn't. It was wow. And it was at a time where I was hurting and I did a lot for them. And it was crazy. Like the timeline and everything was nuts. So it was just a really hard, insane wake up call that I also then had to sit with because what was I going to do with that information? I needed to process it. I needed to think about it. And then I needed to think about what I needed the future to look like and how I needed it to unfold, right? It's like measure twice, cut once. And that, obviously takes time. And, we sometimes we can just end up justifying because we love someone and they tell you what they're lying. And I'm like, well, why would they lie? Like, why would what would any individual get from lying to me with very specific details that only they could know if it's true? So, that was the major turning point for me.
What practices, people, or moments have brought you grounding or peace
Mhm.
as you've moved forward?
Yeah, for me, it's my writing and understanding who I am, who I was, and who I'm going to be. And in doing so, what were my blind spots? What were the narratives? What did I learn? And what did I tell myself as a child, as an adolescent, as a young adult? And then what the truths of those are and doing the work to sift through, deconstruct, excavate, and trash all of the stuff that's not true that holds me hostage in a place of accepting people, places, and things that are not for me, living in misalignment, right? My whole career, everything is built on these lies. So I have to get down on my knees and do the work. Like there's no other way to do it. There's no fast tracked way to do it. And it's messy, it's painful, it's, out of this world at times because you're like, whoa, I never thought that because we think I'm intelligent, I'm successful. These things aren't logical. And it's not that they're not logical, it's just that they're so in your subconscious and that you're not even aware of it and you're just operating in this system and in this place. So for me, my writing always comes from a place of wanting to learn who I am, who I was, and then who I want to be. And without that non-judgmental conversation with yourself and looking at the truth, I don't know how anyone can move forward. So my writing and my focus is always how can I just choose better for myself? Not for anyone else, not for how it looks, not for likes, not for clicks, because none of that matters. Because every day I wake up with myself and that's all that matters. So again, I never want to bleed on anyone else when I get the blessing to have children, I don't want to damage them because I'm haven't done my work. I want to be an amazing partner to my next person, all those things. So it's so important to be honest and to just dig in and get messy because the sooner you get messy, the faster you can get clean. And no, it's not linear, but it gets easier and you just feel so much lighter and you free yourself.
What has
Mhm.
surprised you about your healing, either in how hard it was or in how strong you discovered you are?
First off, I trust myself more today than I have my entire life. And it's because healing isn't about the other person nor what they did, right? It's about coming home to ourselves and understanding ourselves again, right? The abuse and the incident was a portal that revealed what existed and had nothing to do with that individual, period. So it's taking away that individual because it has nothing to do with them. They're completely irrelevant. It's that was incident was the portal to now shed light on all of the things that we now get to address. We get to heal and we get to become the person that we always were, but is just hidden behind the muck of this screen of like who we think we need to be and who we think we are because of what we're told, right? And it's always to me important to just get rid of that person. So it's not about forgetting, but it's about refocusing on the what really matters, and that's ourselves, and getting through the blind spots and getting through the work and healing and working on ourselves, not chasing an apology, not chasing closure, because all of those things rely on the other individual who is completely irrelevant. Right? We need to forgive ourselves first. We need to forgive ourselves for not knowing what we didn't know and for accepting what we never should have accepted. So I think the sooner that we can get to that, the better, right? And I think that's what surprised me most about healing is that it has nothing to do with anything that we think it has to do with, and everything to do with the person that we see when we look in the mirror.
You want other women to know about life after domestic abuse, about possibility, love,
Mhm.
trust, or rebuilding.
I want women to know that what you've been through and what you're growing through is not a reflection of your intelligence, is not a reflection of your worth, is not a reflection of any of that. We have been through so much subconsciously, and all of the ways that, the main focus should be just our healing and coming home to ourselves and being aware that sometimes we miss the red flags because of that. Sometimes we miss the red flags because the people are so good at what they do and they target you because you're strong, because you have all of these amazing qualities. They don't target weak people. They target strong, independent, resourceful, well off in all the ways, compassionate women who work hard and want to work and make things happen, so it's never a reflection of your self-worth or your intelligence. Because for me, for a while, I was like, boy, was I an idiot. And it's like, well, no, I was taken advantage of and I was targeted, and instead of thinking I'm an idiot, let me just learn from this and not let it happen again. And if it starts to happen again, then I still need to do more work, right? And to not shy away from that work because listen, if you don't do the work, it's just going to happen again in a different form. And like, I said, this individual is not special. They're not intelligent. They're not any of the things. And if it wasn't them, it just would have been someone else in a different form, in another format, in another way. So we're never going to outrun them. We just have to outsmart them by becoming aware of our own wounds and our own things that we need to work on because these predators know how to seek them out and see them and spot them in 5 minutes. So the best thing that we can do is be aware of who we are and know it, right? And own it and work on healing it. And, and again, that takes time and it's not linear. But if you know what your things are, then no one else can use them against you, right? Like I said earlier, if you own it, then no one else can own you. So that's my biggest hope and takeaway that any woman walks away with.